think it's 6 o'clock, so we're gonna get started. Thank you all for coming. I want to introduce myself. I am Laura Kleinman. I'm a sales agent here at Compass, and the idea of us being here is to recognize that our family, or our parents in particular, are going to be going through changes in the future. And hello, hi, come on in.
We're just starting right up there.
We didn't just start. I was saying my name is Lauren. I'm a sales agent here at Compass, and we are here today to understand a little bit more about how we can support our parents as they go through changes and are getting older. So I want to welcome you all here. I don't know how many of you have been here before. This is a little bit of a 360 for me because I worked in this exact space for those of you who have been in the neighborhood for a long time when it used to be Two Boots Restaurant. So back in the day. So I'm a Compass Plus agent and a certified senior advisor. In my business, I'm specifically focused on helping senior homeowners and their families navigate the transitions of moving from their family home. And with that, really understanding the challenges that face seniors in terms of this big decision in their lives. Change is difficult for all of us, particularly difficult and also overwhelming for seniors, especially when they're making the decision to move from a beloved home that they've lived in sometimes for decades. Even more challenging, I know some of you here don't live close to your parents, and trying to manage their care needs and their living arrangements from afar comes with a whole different set of issues and anxiety. It is a national network of agents that have an abundance of resources all over the country to help families go through changes in these transitions with compassion and, most of all, patience. And I think that we all know this in working with our parents, that patience really is the key in having these conversations with them. Tonight we're discussing initiating meaningful conversations with our parents about their future. I want to acknowledge that these conversations are not easy. Initiating them is often the most difficult part, but being thoughtfully prepared as to the reason that we're here is really the best place to begin. I'm hoping that all of you will gain some insight here tonight on how to begin these conversations, how to structure them, and really get some focus from Zoe and Dawn on the most important things to be looking at when starting these conversations. Joining us tonight, we have, as I said, Zoe and I grew up in the neighborhood together. She's an elder attorney with Grimaldi & Young here in Brooklyn, and she's going to be talking about the specific documents that your family is going to want to put in place in order to ensure their well-being in the future. Dawn is the founder of Hither Hive, which is an elder move management support company, and they focus specifically on decluttering, downsizing, and concierge moving preparation from beginning to end. Tonight, we're each going to be speaking about 10 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. We'll have a little bit of snacks, some beverages, and then some time for additional questions as well. We are videotaping tonight, so if you do have somebody that you think would benefit from this conversation, we can certainly share the link with you later. If you're not interested in being on camera, let us know, and then we can arrange that as everything is getting finally edited. So why this conversation matters. I'm going to start with sharing my personal story that really initiated my idea of putting this all together, why I feel like proactive planning is so important. When my sister and I were in our 30s, my parents started talking to us about their plans for the future. And this was where the important documents were, what their healthcare expectations were. It was just really hard to digest that conversation when you're in your 30s because they were active, they were social, we were traveling regularly, and the idea of having to face their potential health issues and possibly their mortality was something that I had zero interest in talking about, and I felt like it was absolutely way too early to be having these conversations. So they can take my parents continue to have these conversations with us. My dad is very persistent, for those of you that know him. At that time, he was still very patient, although he continued to bring up these conversations. He definitely respected the fact that I was hesitant in talking about these things. But I was still hearing him, even though I wasn't committing to having these conversations. and keep on track with all my ideas. So he respected my hesitations in having these conversations, but throughout the years, he patiently continued to initiate the topics that he wanted to talk about. As time passed, I began to notice changes in my parents, and their needs became more real to me. We began to speak more often with more focus and detail. It was kind of impossible to avoid, as it was incredibly important to my parents that both my sister and I understood how and where they wanted to age. We ended up discussing their advanced health directives, their long-term care policies, their durable power of attorneys, their wills, and getting an idea of their overall financial picture. Fast forward to 2025, my dad is now 101. My mom is 93. They are living in their brownstone in Park Slope, 55 years, and they're living comfortably and relatively healthy. My sister and I live very close by. We see them often, and we do have at this time a part-time aide assisting them, amazing part-time aide, Kathy, assisting them, which is being paid for by my mom's long-term care policy. In June of this year, that policy incidentally expired. So July of this year, moving forward a little bit, my father took a fall and fractured his hip. He was admitted into Methodist Hospital. He had an absolutely amazing recovery. And within 6 weeks, he was home, doing wonderfully. The night before he was coming home, my mother started showing signs of a stroke. And the next day, within hours, actually within 1 hour, I had to admit my mom into Methodist. Hi. There's a seat here, Pat. So within an hour of my dad getting home, I now found myself admitting my mom into Methodist Hospital. Incidentally, same floor, same doctors, same nurses. The whole thing was crazy and surreal, as my father had just left this exact location. The summer was a whirlwind for my family. So many things came up throughout the several months that my sister and I were absolutely not prepared for at all. But thankfully, we did have a clear roadmap from my parents as to how they wanted us to handle circumstances that came up. This preparation that they provided us with helped my sister and I make really important decisions together regarding our parents' care and finances when they were not able to advocate for themselves. And only now, in retrospect, although we are still in this process, have I learned to fully understand and appreciate my parents' forethought and proactive thinking on all of this. So why initiate this conversation now? And to me, the obvious reason is we're going into the holidays, we're going to be with our families, and it's a great opportunity to begin these conversations. Throughout the year, there's distance, there's distractions that make these conversations more challenging to coordinate. But during the holidays, you have your siblings, you have your extended family, you're all under one roof, it's a safe space, and it's a perfect time to have meaningful conversations. We tend to be focused on connecting during the holidays. So I'm creating this utopian vision of the holidays that we all want to be with our families, we enjoy our time together, it's wonderful, right? But that being said, is in a lot of ways a perfect time to really get, because you are all together in one place, to have and initiate the talk. Speaking with your family will definitely not prepare you for everything that might come up, but it will make things easier in the future for everyone. Your parents having the ability to actively participate in making the decisions about their own safety, their own care, their own living situation, their own happiness is an important step in building trust around these conversations. And you're also able to support one another while you're supporting your parents at the same time. As I mentioned, I initially resisted having these conversations with my parents, but thinking about the process now, I realized that with that first conversation, a seed was planted of trust that grows throughout the process and as these conversations grow. With this, I want to acknowledge that my sister and I were really fortunate because my parents took the initiation. They initiated these conversations with us, and they were very proactive in their own planning. We all know that families are different. You will encounter different obstacles and challenges. But these conversations can actually bring families together, and sometimes you can find unity where maybe it hasn't existed before by putting our differences aside and coming together to help our parents feel comfortable with the decisions and the choices that they're making. Your being here tonight means that you realize that at some point, if you haven't already, and maybe some of you have, you will need to step in and make some difficult decisions about your parents' health, comfort, and care. As we know, every family is different, and everyone's needs, both now and in the future, are unique. That means the way that you approach these conversations will be different for every family. I want to share, well, first of all, I wanted to ask if anybody has started these conversations with this family, just to get a sense of if anybody has already started planning with their parents that's here, a little bit.
They know I'm here, so.
Right, excellent step. So I want to share some suggestions that I think would be helpful in your preparation of establishing this conversation with your family. You want to recognize first that an in-person environment is much better than virtual. There's a lot more connection. You're able to really get the sentiment of what's going on with all the attendees. You should schedule this meeting in a neutral, safe location that all the attendees are comfortable in and where there are very little distractions. You'll want to identify all the family members that should be part of the planning for this conversation. It should not be a surprise for anybody. You want to make sure and be clear with your intentions. Everybody should know beforehand. I suggest that, and although my father disagreed because I read this to him, he did not think that this was necessary, but I suggest, because I have friends that I know this is helpful for, maybe designating a facilitator, somebody that can actually keep the conversation focused on your parents and also potentially alleviate some sort of conflict if you think that it might arise. And I think most importantly, it's helpful to have clear goals throughout what you want to learn in the conversation and approach it with open-ended questions. I have some examples of what I think open-ended questions look like that might help you have a bigger picture of what this would look like. What does your ideal future look like? You would ask your parents. How can we best support you staying independent? We want to make sure we understand what you want for the future in order to best support you. These topics are hard to think about, but planning ahead can help all of us have peace of mind. You also want to remember that fear and resistance is normal, so parents will worry about losing their autonomy, their independence. Most importantly, I feel like the role reversal of their kids becoming the caregivers. Children feel anxious about their parents aging and facing health issues. You want to approach this conversation with empathy and understanding. The best way to do this is to practice active listening, meaning really listen when your parents are answering your questions. Allow them to express their thoughts openly and their concerns, uninterrupted and without judgment, showing that you really respect their point of view. You also want to have patience. This can be especially difficult when you or your family members have specific, strong ideas about what they think is best for your parents. In other words, in order to build trust, it's important to focus on listening more and speaking less, which I know can be challenging. Siblings also need to feel the same trust and respect. Disagreements may come up, and that's okay. You want to recognize that everyone's fears and concerns, and you might all not agree, but it's important that everyone feels heard and respected. This will help foster a collaborative, supportive relationship, which you're going to need with your siblings and extended family. Most importantly, you want to approach these initial conversations with an open mind and an open heart, remembering this is about your parents, not you. That's keeping in mind that the decisions that are made during these conversations will definitely affect you in the future. I want to share with you some topics that I think you might want to focus on, not all at once. This conversation is a process. It starts one place and then over the years will evolve as your parents' desires and changes and needs change. You want to think about where your parents' preferred living arrangements might be. Where do they envision living as they age? What are their lifestyle goals? What do they enjoy not now, and what are they going to continue to enjoy in the future? And what is important for them to have access to? Do they have a healthcare plan in place? Have they considered what caregiving might look like in the future? And if any financial and/or estate planning have they done or prepared for? And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Zoe, who will go into more detail about estate planning.
I'm just going to set my clock here so I don't go. Hello, everybody. My name is Zoe Freireich. I work as an elder and estate planning lawyer. I'm in the neighborhood. I'm on 4th Avenue and 19th Street at Grimaldi Young Lovers. So I just want to go over basics tonight with you. You have this, my PowerPoint that I'm giving in person in your folder if you ever forget anything. So the agenda is just to first talk about advanced directives, and those are power of attorney, healthcare proxy, living will. Those are the major ones. And then also how you would plan with a trust, and what that has to do with long-term care plan and asset protection. There's two different types of trusts that I'm going to talk about tonight. There's many different options out there, but the ones that I'm just going to touch upon are living trusts and pools. So the advanced directives that are a group of documents that are very important that give you protection while you're alive and make sure that your wishes are carried out by somebody that you absolutely trust. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is power of attorney. A power of attorney allows somebody to manage your financial matters and your legal matters. It's a convenience document as well as a document to be used when you are no longer competent to do those things for yourself. And so as soon as you sign it, it can be used. So if you're in the hospital or if you're in a rehab facility because you've fallen down and broken a hip, your trusted loved ones can do all of your finances for you. They can write checks for you. They can go to the bank. They can actually sign you up for rehab afterwards in your home. They can have a physical therapist come for you. And it also avoids the need for, if you don't have a power of attorney and you do become incompetent, you cannot make decisions for yourself, you have to have a guardianship proceeding done in the courts. And so that it avoids that. There's a standard form, and there's a copy of that in the handout. That is, you can Google it, find it online. That's just for your day-to-day type functions. But if you really want a document that's for long-term care planning and for protection of your assets, estate planning, you really do need to see an elder lawyer or a trust and estates lawyer, or because there are modifications that us lawyers put in that make the document extremely powerful so that it is as powerful as a guardianship. So you really have to go to a professional to have that done. You cannot get those modifications online. In order for the power of attorney to be able to be created, the person who is the principal, the person signing it and giving the power to their agent, who is the trusted loved one, they have to be competent. So you have to do it before the person declines to the point that they can't understand what the document is anymore. And so I think everybody who's 18 years old should have one of these. It's a bearer instrument. If you don't feel comfortable with somebody having this kind of power over you now, you can hold on to it and then they can't use it. However, if you trust your people, it's better that they have this document in case something happens. With a power of attorney, you can have co-agents. So let's say your parents have both their kids as their agents. If one kid has to go away for 6 months on a sabbatical somewhere, the other kid can step in and do whatever while the co-agent is gone. Then the next one that I want to talk about is a healthcare proxy. Healthcare proxy is for somebody to step in and make healthcare decisions for you when you are unable to make them for yourself. You are always the first person that is able to make your healthcare decisions for yourself, and that's, hey, we need a prescription, all the way to my parent would not want to live this way, please do not connect them to that machine to keep them alive. Right? It's everything. But you yourself are the person who always makes those decisions, but when you become unable to make them, there has to be somebody who is appointed. Again, it's a statutory form. There's a copy of it in your handout. That is something that you actually could do on your own. We don't have to go to a lawyer, but if you're not going to do it, just go to a lawyer and pay for the fee. It's not very expensive. Okay. Then the last one is a living will. You don't need it so much because your healthcare proxy, your agent, can make the decision not to connect you to machines. However, in practice, doctors sometimes don't want to just let you pass away. They have a Hippocratic oath unless the agent shows that the parent or whomever actually wrote down, I don't want to be connected to machines, right? And so that's what a living will is. A living will says, which, by the way, different from a last will and testament, totally different, similar name. A living will says, please do not connect me to artificial breathing, hydration, nutrition. Don't give me antibiotics, just give me maximum pain medication, let me pass away. And so if you don't agree with that, certainly you don't sign one. But if your parents do agree with that, or if you agree with that, it's a good thing to have in case. And then in order to protect your assets, your wealth, from the cost of long-term care, you plan with trusts. So first of all, I want to step back and what is long-term care? Because not everybody knows what is long-term care. I have health insurance, right? Health insurance and long-term care are different. Long-term care is unskilled, meaning it's not a nurse, it's not a physical therapist, it is an aid. It's when somebody needs an aid. And as people age, and we're living into our hundreds now, quite commonly, people need somebody. Even if you're okay mentally, your joints go. And it's expensive. So if you're going to pay for that care, you either pay out of pocket from your savings, you have long-term care insurance, and if you haven't gotten it, by the time you're, 60, 70 years old, you'd have to talk to an insurance agent. It's quite costly. And so if our parents don't have it, they really can't get it by now. And the only other way to pay for it is through Medicaid, not Medicare, but Medicaid. So Medicare pays for people's health care, but we're talking about long-term care. And so people say, but I'm not eligible for Medicaid. There's all sorts of asset limits, and there's also income limits. So as an elder lawyer, this is what I do. I make people eligible for Medicaid. So I just want to keep very clear that it is never too late and you never have too much. Even if you already have somebody who is actively using an aid, it is never too late to hopefully save some of the assets, and you never, unless you earn your income $8,000 or more a year as a retired person, maybe you're over income, but for the most part, most of us, we're never over income, we're never over assets. So how do we do that? First of all, I want to let you know that the income portion, you don't have to think about until you actually are applying for Medicaid, because you can't get rid of your income usually, and there's just no real need to go too much into it. But what you do have to prepare for is your assets, right? So Medicaid doesn't look at all of your assets, it looks at certain assets and your resources to pay, and those are the things that you can then transfer into an irrevocable living trust called a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. That is credit protection, so none of your creditors can attach the assets that you title into the name of the trust. And they then are not calculated as part of your assets when Medicaid looks at what you have. Any living trust is a will substitute, and so you can provide for your family after you pass away in the document, and you can also provide for what happens with your assets during your lifetime. Because it's a will substitute, you also avoid probate for everything that the trust owns. When you do pass away, you don't have to go through the court system. Like a will, you go through the court system, it sets you up for that. If you don't have a will, court system as well. But having a living trust avoids the extent that you put everything into the name of that trust. And also, if you pass away and in your home, you can avoid capital gains taxes through a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. And then I touched upon real briefly that there's also something you can do for your income. It's called a pooled trust. And real basically, when you apply for Medicaid, on your application, you let them know, I understand I make too much money in Medicaid, my income is too high. Currently, the income limit is $1,800 a month for one person. So most people earn more than that just in Social Security alone. So most likely you're going to have your parents are going to earn too much. And so what you say is, I understand that I'm over income. However, if you approve me, I'm going to put all my extra money into this pooled trust. And what you do is the pool trust company manages the extra money that every month you direct deposit into their trust account. And there's a ledger that's in your own name or your parents' name, and they can pull off of that money and pay for expenses that Medicaid does not pay for. So for example, if your parent has a special medicine that Medicaid doesn't cover, which through my work, there's a woman who needed certain medication that was $1,000 a month. Medicare didn't cover it. She has some extra money, so she pays for it out of her money that's kept away from those assets and accounts. So that's it. So if you need to talk to your parents about getting those things in place, if they don't have those in place, please see an elder law attorney. Trust and estates attorneys, it can help, but elder law is really what you want to go to if you have long-term care needs. I'm one of those attorneys, and there's many out there. Thank you.
Great, thanks Zoe. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. Now I'll talk about the logistical parts of things. My name's Dawn. I am the founder of Hither Hive. We're a senior and specialty move management and professional organizing company. I founded my company to help older adults and their families when it's time to downsize out of their longtime home and go to assisted living, memory care, or even just a smaller apartment. So I'd like to start by getting a show of hands. How many parents live in the house you grew up in? So a good number, that's impressive. And for those of you whose parents have downsized already, who helped them with that process? Oh, honey. So you've started. Whatever your situation, you're not alone. Daily, we receive phone calls like this. My mother fell again and broke her hip. She can't navigate stairs. She has to move. Or my father's dementia has worsened. He has to go into memory care. So when we get calls like this, everyone's upset. Everyone's freaking out. The adult child, that's you, has a full career, raising kids of their own. They typically don't live right near their parents. And the older adult is freaking out because they're in pain and they don't want to move. No one wants to move. Everyone's dealing with the inciting medical incident, the legal paperwork, paying the medical bills, figuring everything out, and everyone's having an emotional breakdown. So if that's not bad enough, then what about all the stuff? The parents can't go through all the stuff because they are not physically able and they don't have the stamina. The kids don't want to go through the stuff because it's going to take forever and they don't know what to do with it. And the parents are afraid the kids are going to throw things away. So let me drop some numbers on you. The average house has 300,000 items. It takes, on average, adult children 9 months to clear their parents' home. So that's a long time. How can you make this easier? Well, you can start now. You can start decluttering now, before a medical crisis forces an emergency move. The way you sell your parents on this, because they're not going to want to do this, is you remind them that this is how they maintain control. They can downsize on their terms. They get to choose what they're going to keep, what will go with them, and what they want to give away or sell or try to donate. So they can make decisions at their pace. And if you haven't noticed, our parents' generation accumulated things. They have china, crystal, silver, figurines. You might have decorative plates on the wall, right? So they have their stuff. And then they have, undoubtedly, their parents' unedited collections of stuff that they just feel compelled to keep. And they probably have some of your stuff too. So a word to the wise, downsizing and decluttering, it's not just about moving stuff around and out of the house. It's very emotional. It's an emotional attachment to the stuff. When your parents look at a bowl, they don't see a bowl. They see the one-of-a-kind, beautiful piece of art they bought on vacation when they were in Florence. They see the Christmas ornament that you made them. They see the people they were, the people they thought they would become one day, and they go through a mourning process. So how do you begin? First of all, buy supplies. Buy boxes. Don't wait until Amazon delivers some ill-fitting box to your home. Just buy boxes. Get contractor bags, packing tape, Sharpies, Post-its. Having the right supplies encourages, start small. Set a timer for 15 minutes a day. Just tell your parents after dinner, pour yourself a glass of wine and set the timer 15 minutes. And maybe you can work your way up to 20 minutes, half an hour. We'll see how it goes. You want to start in a non-personal area like the kitchen. Eliminate duplicates. Open the drawer. Do you see 5 spatulas? Throw 4 away. Is something worn or chipped? Get it out of there. Get rid of things nobody uses. There's stovetop pressure cookers. There's waffle irons that are a trip to the emergency room. Just get rid of those things. One thing to keep in mind, and tell your parents this, whether it's over the video or just over the phone or whatever. So the mantra, do you love it, use it, or need it? If they don't answer yes to one of these, then get it out of there. And you're going to hear excuses, so many excuses. Someone might need it. Well, then send it to that person. That costs money. That was sunk back in 1980 when you bought it. You might hear, I might need that someday. Well, when was the last time you used it? So just try to encourage them to keep going. In addition to decluttering, here are some ways to make the home safer. So let's talk about the bathroom. Everyone goes into the bathroom many times a day, and it's a disaster waiting to happen. Most falls happen in the bathroom. There's water. You're standing up, sitting down, standing up. So what you can do first is to install safety bars. These come in all different models and colors and designs now. So put them in the shower, around the toilet, around the sink, and even better, make sure they don't have to step into the shower. You're going to have to perhaps add a curbless shower, make it big enough so it can accommodate a wheelchair or maybe an aid. So put a little bench in there, a handheld shower head while you're at it. Another thing, you can clear the pathway. So we're out of the bathroom now. Clear pathways of anything, of stacks of books, of paperwork, of ceramic pumpkins and poinsettias. Just keep the entryway, any hallway, any staircases around the bed clear. Most senior moves are precipitated by falls. And as safe as a home is, there's usually a move in your parents' future. I do not recommend taking this on yourself. This is not a time to DIY or save money. It's not the same as moving yourself, where you might be able to pick things up, you might be able to pack a box, the noise won't bother you, you're not upset about moving to your final place. So your parents are going to feel all of this, and they need special care. They need you to take care of them, take them to lunch, bring them to your home where their home is being packed up. So what you do is you hire a move manager. We're like wedding planners, but for moving. We'll decide what fits from their current house, which is large, into their brand new, smaller assisted living studio. Well, they can bring one love seat, not the 3 sofas they have. They definitely can't bring the dining set, the china cabinet. They cannot bring all this stuff. So we take care of that. We figure it out. We manage the move. We unpack and organize everything in the new home. So they don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to lift a finger. You bring them in, you open the door, and everything's set up. Move managers also help declutter. We sit with your parents and we go through all of their stuff. And then at the end, we clear estates. We work with auction houses, art and antique dealers, and we empty the house so you can get to the true value of the estate. I always tell people, do not let one outdated, out-of-tune piano prevent you from achieving the value of the real estate. So we work on all of these tasks so you can focus on what matters most, your parents. So I'm going to leave you with one action item. Call your parents and start this conversation. The earlier the better.
Agreed. That seems to be the theme of what's happening here tonight. So I wanted to just make a couple of final comments in terms of a little bit more about what initiated this conversation and our being here. While speaking with my friends about what's been going on with me in the last year, it became apparent that there was quite a bit of value in the information that I had learned from the experience, and I thought it was really important to try and help other families. So I'm really glad that you're all here. I hope that you'll see the benefit in this. While my sister and I were certainly not prepared for the last couple of months, the emotional roller coaster, it became clear that my parents' early proactive planning helped us maneuver through this emergency situation with a real level of confidence. While a majority of adults recognize the importance of having these conversations with their parents, most don't, for a variety of reasons. And that's exactly why Zoe, Dawn, and I wanted to be here with you guys tonight to offer you some insight, guidance, and practical tips on how to begin. You can never be 100% prepared for any situation, but as Zoe mentioned, having the healthcare proxy for my parents and the medical directives, among other items, really allowed my sister and I to approach some difficult decision-making regarding our parents' care, knowing that what we were deciding was actually what our parents had decided for themselves. And it did bring us peace and made the experience easier when dealing with so many other moving parts. Like my parents, many of our parents hold this romantic vision and idea of aging in place and staying in their home. In some cases, this is absolutely possible, but with what we're seeing now with the rising healthcare costs and the decreasing federal funding, who knows what the future will bring. What I do know with 100% certainty is that the only way your parents will be able to stay in their house is if they do aggressive financial planning today. So I can promise you that by actively participating in these difficult conversations is worth it. Having a clear idea of what your parents want will provide you and your family with clarity. Which enables you to honor what they in fact want and respect your parents' choices. So you all have folders. I included in the folder a future presentation questionnaire. I hope that you can all figure it out. Fill it out, not figure it out. I'm sure you can all. But if you could fill it out, there's a lot of topics that we didn't have an opportunity to cover today. If there's something that you're interested in, let me know. I'm happy to host another presentation. On the table, I have some books that helped me create this presentation and formalize some other ways of speaking with my parents, along with some caregiving tips. I do also want to mention, I think Dawn mentioned it as well, you're not alone. There are a lot of private and public organizations, community, state, federal, that I have reached out to in the last couple of months that have been really helpful and supportive. And there's also a flyer on the table, and I think I put one in each of your folders as well, for Heights and Hills, which is a community senior center that also offers caregiving support. And I just want to end tonight by honoring and dedicating this presentation to my parents. Their love and support and their proactive planning really was one of the greatest gifts they ever could have shared with my sister and I. And it's my hope that being here tonight, your families will be able to find peace and connection in your own planning together. So thank you for coming. Thank you. And I guess we're going to have a little bit of questions, and then we'll have snacks and drinks and a little social time and all of that.